Hello and welcome to the Fostering Diaries. If you're new around here, my name is Sarah and I am a single foster carer in the UK, and here on this channel I share all about my life and my journey as a foster carer. So if you are a foster carer or you're thinking about fostering, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit that like button, and let's get into the video. So today we are talking about one of the things that I get asked the most about, and it is daily logs, daily diaries, daily journal, whatever you call it. If you don't know, if you are new to fostering, as a foster carer, when we have children in our care, we have to write a daily log, a daily diary, a daily journal of incidents, things that happen throughout each day. Now, before I get into the video, I just want to say that some of the things I'm going to say, maybe they don't apply to you, and obviously always speak to your supervising social worker to see how they want them to be done, because I've heard of people who have got long-term children who don't have to do daily diaries, they just do weekly ones or various different things. This is just my experience and how I do daily diaries, how I've been told to do daily diaries, and I'm hoping that it maybe will help some of you out. We're first going to talk about what a daily diary is, then we're going to talk about what we should include, and then the different methods of how we can record. One of the methods that I'll talk about later is we can use one of these books. I do sell these. If you fancy having a look at them, they are linked down below. But I want to talk about what a daily diary is. In this book, on the first page, it gives you a little brief rundown of what is a foster care journal, what it is, why we do it. And I think it's important to remember that daily journals are a legal document. They can be used in court, and it's important to write professionally in them. If you want to take a closer look at what it does say in there, by all means you can pause the video now and take a closer look, or screenshot it, or whatever you want to do. But that's what it says in there. So like I say, the daily journals are a legal document that can be used in court. They can help with so many different things. They will provide patterns of children's behaviour. They can help with the care plan. For example, if a child struggles with contact with a particular family member and they behave in a certain way afterwards or beforehand, that should all be recorded in the daily journal, and then over time we can see actually there's a pattern in their behaviour, that this happens when this happens. These documents will be stored on the child's file, and the child will be able to access them when they're older. To be honest, when I have a slightly older child, I try to, as much as possible, do the daily diaries with the child and discuss the daily diary with the child. It's about them. It's they should be involved in it, in my opinion. And so I would encourage you to do that if that's at all possible with the children that you do have. So what do we put in a daily diary? I did a big brainstorm, and I've got a massive list of the things that you could put in a daily diary. And the first thing to say is, no opinions should be put in there. It's never about what you think or how you perceive something, which I remember really struggling with at the start, because I would write things like, the child is happy about da-da-da-da, whatever. And then I was like, actually, is the child happy? How do I know they're happy? I need to write actual facts on things, like this is what they did. They ran around laughing. It probably shows that they're happy, right? But the fact of it is they ran around laughing, not necessarily that they were happy. For me, I found that was the hardest thing, is to take my own opinion out of it and be very, I've got a hair on my nose, to be very fact orientated with how I wrote the daily diary. So keep that in mind as you go through. Everything has to be a fact, no opinion. So who I foster with did actually just do a support group about daily diaries, so it was really useful to go to that support group, because I knew I was going to be making this video, and I made a big list and had my own brainstorm about what to include. So this list has come from both myself, other foster carers in the area that I foster in, and supervising social workers. So I'm just going to go through them. There's no particular order in this at all, it's just the things that came up during this support group. So the first thing that came up was any details of family time or contact, the quality of the contact, any cancelled contact and how the child responded, any phone calls that they have, so basically any contact that they have with their family. Make a note of that in the daily diaries, and how was it? How did the child react beforehand? Were they excited to go, or did they hang on, let's say, were they excited? How do we know if they were excited? But were they saying things like, I'm looking forward to seeing someone, or, you know, what was happening in the lead up to contact? And also what happened afterwards. How did they behave in the car on the way home? Did they talk about anything? What did they say? And when they are children of an age who can talk and will express things to you, I always find it important to actually put down the things that they actually said down. So for example, we've been in the car on the way back from a contact, and a child has said something about a parent, and I've made a mental note of it. Sometimes it's really hard. You know, I find that children always talk when you're driving, and it's really hard to then remember everything. But yeah, I try to make a mental note, right, that person said that, and as soon as I get home, I'll either write it in my notes, or I'll like put it straight into the final daily diary thing, just so I don't forget any of it. The next thing to put in is details of any visits from either the child social worker or your own supervising social worker. Basically anyone who visits the house, I would put in, like if friends, family came round, I'd write that in the daily diary. Anyone who enters your home on that day, I would personally just write it in the daily diary. Any medical or dental appointments, definitely write in, and along with that, anything that happens to the child. I have a little section which I'll show you in a little while when I talk about how I do it, a medical section in mine, where obviously if there's any medical appointments, I write that in there, but I also, anything like any marks that a child gets. Children, as we know, fall over, bump into things, get little cuts, bruises, grazes all the time, and if a child ever does anything like that with me, I always write it in my daily diary. Obviously if it's a bigger incident where you know, hospital treatment is needed or something like that, I would fill out what we call a significant event form. But if it's just for the minor cuts, bangs, bruises, I always just write it in there so that everyone knows what's happened. I have had parents in the past where they would notice all these different marks, and to cover myself really from any allegations of anything. Also within the medical section, any medication that you give to the child, the quantities, the time. You may also have a separate form where you have to record that, but it's always just worth writing it in your daily diary as well. Any immunisation appointments, any illnesses that they have. So all of that is covered in the medical kind of section. So I talked before about if a child mentioned something to do with family time or contact. Also, I'd push that out to say anything that a child comments on, talks to you about relevant to, you know, birth family or their situation, get that recorded down. It could be vastly important in terms of, you know, of their case. They could be disclosing things to you. Obviously, dependent upon if they're disclosing, you know, very serious things, let someone know immediately about that, but get that all down. And also, not just on the negative side, if they're saying positive things as well, whether it is to do with their situation, with their birth family, or whether it's just, oh, I had a lovely day today. I always try to put some nice comments about what they've said when they've had nice days. It's just, you don't want it to be just this negative thing, well, negative things that they're saying about situations. Definitely try to include some positive things as well. On that as well is like achievements, or like good events. So recently my children started school, so I wrote a lovely little thing in their daily diary about what they said about their first day of school and how they said they felt about it and everything. Achievements, if they get a little certificate from school, or if they go to any like out of school activities, if they, that for one is something to put on their out of school activities that they do. But if they achieve something, stick that in there. It's nice to have some really positive, good things in the daily diaries as well. If there's been any police involvement, it's not something I've ever had, but if there's any police involvement, obviously that's a thing that you stick on the daily diaries. I would go too far to say that's probably a significant event as well, but yeah, stick that in the daily diaries. A couple of other things that you could include that may be relevant but may not be is their sleep and their eating. Their sleep I always find good to do initially when they first arrive, just because it focuses my attention really on how good is their sleep, when are they going to bed, when are they getting up, what, you know, are there some issues with nightmares, or, you know, their world's just been flipped upside down, they're in a new home, and how is their sleep going. So I include that at the start, and then I kind of like phase that out after a few weeks, just when I realise sort of how well they're sleeping. And normally for me, I know the children that I've had generally have become settled within the first few weeks and are just sleeping well, so I feel like there's not really much to write in there. Sometimes I'll add it in as a little token, yeah, they've slept well tonight. And then also food. It could be that you have a child who has been seriously neglected, or food is a massive issue. I know that for a child that I've looked after, I was specifically asked by the child social worker to include a very detailed log of everything they ate during the day, and so sometimes that is appropriate. It may not always be appropriate to add in what they eat. It may just be they just eat normally and it's all good. You don't need to include that, but again, I like to add it in at least for the first couple of weeks, just so it makes me remember, like, is this child eating, or they're not really eating? What are the things that they're liking to eat? Because I can like look back at them like, oh yeah, okay. So it's a good one just to do initially, I find. So that is by no means an exhaustive list of what you can put in your daily diary. So if you have any other suggestions, please do leave them down below in the comments. But now we're going to take a look at the different ways you can record. I know that some local authorities and independent fostering agencies use an online system. I don't use an online system. I feel like I would quite like an online system, but I don't. So obviously if you have that system, I think it's called Charms. I have never seen it. I've heard other foster carers talking about it and I believe it's quite good, but we don't use it. So obviously if you have Charms, go ahead and carry on using it. But there's various different ways that you can record. Like I said, I have this. It is a foster care journal and you can have one of these for each child, and inside it you can write the child's details. I use this, I'll tell you how I use this. Let me just go to a page where I haven't written on. There's a page for every day and it is broken up into sections: memories, health, medications, appointments, behaviour, contact, other, and then like another section at the bottom that you can write in what you will. And I find this really useful for, I am like a pen and paper person, to be honest, and I find it useful if I'm at home. And at the moment I have 3 children with me, 3 siblings, and if I'm at home I always just have this downstairs or kind of wherever I am, and if something happens, an incident happens, or a child says something when they're playing or something, I just grab this and I quickly just write like the initial of who the child is, what they've said or what's happened. Because especially when you have a lot of children, 3 children, you've got a busy life and things going on, you do forget what they've said and you forget the specifics, and those specifics might be really important. So I find this really useful just for notes taking. I don't use it as like the actual proper daily diary, but just as note taking on like little things that they say or things that happen throughout the day. So if you fancy this, if that might be of use to you, I will link that down below. So once I've got that information that I've jotted down on there, and I don't do that every day. Sometimes kids don't say anything, sometimes days nothing happens. Let's be real, life isn't, things just don't happen every single day of much importance. But if something does, it's down in there. And then every evening I would recommend to try, sometimes it can be difficult, but every evening to get your daily diary done. Now I don't do this all the time, it just, you know, life happens, but I at least, if I don't get it properly typed up, I at least get some notes written down in here, just because I know that I will forget. So I would definitely encourage you to get something down every single day. And then I move on to this form, and this form is a form that I've been given by who I foster with, and this is what we have to record on. If you haven't been given one, by all means you can sort of recreate this if you would like. I have added in here different headings, and I always find it really useful to go off headings. I feel like if I don't have headings, I'm sometimes sitting there and I'm thinking, what can I write about? What's happened today? Nothing's happened. Whereas I've got headings, it just helps me. So maybe that would be a good idea for you to go off either these headings or whatever headings that you would like. So let's do a daily diary together for a random day. So say that I do want to record sleep. So I could just write here, slept through the night until 7 AM when I went into them. It could be woke up a few times during the night, whatever it may be. If they are a younger child who's having sleeps throughout the day, I would record that in, particularly like if you've got a baby, I would record those down if they're having, you know, like multiple sleeps. So maybe put down for a nap in cot at 2 p.m. Cried a little, but settled quickly to sleep within 5 minutes, something like that. And then bed at night, bed at 7 p.m. after stories. Maybe it was bath night, after bath stories, after bath and stories. That's what happens at night time in this house. After bath and stories. Maybe when you were putting them to bed, they asked for their mum. So asked about mum and when they were seeing her. Food. If you are gonna be recording food, I would say if you've got a baby, record for yourself as well, to know, maybe to record how many ounces of bottles and at what time. I always find that useful when I'm taking care of a newborn, so I know what they've eaten. But food, if you are recording it for a particular reason, it's fairly obvious kind of what you write in there. You can just write, you know, breakfast, porridge with banana, ate all of it, asked for more, you know, that's not how you spell asked, asked for more, you know, and then you can continue, you know, lunch, whatever that was. Lunch, let's say we had sandwiches and some fruit. Said they loved the kiwi fruit, something like that. And then tea, whatever they ate for tea, whatever they had, snacks they had or whatever. So contact, write down there who the contact is with. So say it was 2 hours, 2 hours contact with mum, dad, who knows what it could be, mum, dad and grandma. Before the contact said they were looking forward to seeing dad, but didn't get upset, but started to cry when I said grandma would be there. So that doesn't necessarily, this is the importance that we were talking before about sort of patterns of behaviour. That could mean something, it could not. Say grandma attends a contact every 2 weeks, like she doesn't attend every single one. That could just be today. It was, for whatever reason, the child started to cry when I mentioned that grandma was going to be there. But then if next time I mentioned grandma's going to be there, they start crying, and then next time, and then next time, and if every time, like they say that they're looking forward to contact, but then whenever grandma's mentioned, there's crying that happens, or maybe they just start to look a bit withdrawn, or whatever it may be. That shows a pattern in behaviour with the child, and so it's important to note that down, and we can say, actually, this child is always getting upset when grandma's at contact, but they're always fine the other times. I would always write their reaction when they see parents. So ran and gave them a hug, let's say. Ran and gave mum a hug when they saw her. So then after contact was a little quiet, and when we got home told me they miss their mum and dog. Cried a little whilst sitting on my knee. So there's their like kind of initial reaction to coming home, and then sometimes the behaviour will last for the rest of the day, and sometimes it's just that, you know, they've seen their birth family, they've got upset that, you know, they've come back to my house, they want to be with their birth family, they don't want to be with me. And so I would always write if they have been okay for the rest of the day, it's just that sort of initial reaction of seeing them, and inevitably, you know, they're going to be a little upset when they come home. I always then would just write something along the lines like behaviour was normal for the rest of the day. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe children are louder or don't listen to you for the rest of the day, or are just, children can have various different reactions from seeing their birth family, and it's important to note that down. So there we go. So I've written a little bit about contact. Activities. So this is like the activities, the memories, anything. This is where it's like a little bit more fun. What did they do today? So maybe you went to the farm. So went to the farm. Maybe like a little incident, a funny little incident happened, or you know, they tried to feed the pigs some food, slipped over in the mud. I don't know. Something that's happened. Slipped over in the mud, laughed a lot, played on the playground with other children. Whatever you did that day, whatever fun things you did. Maybe you baked some cakes, maybe a child helped you cook tea, maybe you went shopping. Just whatever you did in that day, put a bit of positivity in the activities there. And then behaviour. Sometimes the behaviour will be, you've already written about the behaviour in like the contact section or the activities section if it's appropriate, and so sometimes it doesn't go in there, but then sometimes maybe it will. Maybe they've had a particular bad day, maybe they've been throwing things, maybe sort of before contact they were fine, but then after contact they just seemed angrier, and they were sort of shouting a lot and throwing toys at people. So you could write that. Obviously this could come in the contact section. This is why I mean, like, sometimes it crosses over. But so after contact was throwing toys around a lot, shouting at me. Maybe the behaviour's been wonderful. Maybe they've done loads of nice things. Maybe they helped their little sister with whatever, something that they helped the little sister with. Any bits of behaviour, stick in there. The medical, obviously we've discussed that. Any incidents go in this. So small bruise, small bang to chin. Said they did it on the carpet. If you've seen the incident happen and you know what's happened, obviously you can write that in. But if you haven't seen it and then later on you see a little mark and the child's capable of telling you what they believe to have happened, write that in. Said they did it on the carpet. If it's obviously a child that doesn't speak, you can just, if you haven't seen something happen, you can just write in, like, spotted when changing for bed, noticed a small scratch to their arm or something. And visits, maybe the child social worker came round for 1.5 hours. That's a long visit, isn't it? Let's change it to 1 hour. To 1 hour, they talked about their family. And that is a daily diary. Obviously you don't need to put all of that in every day. So for example, like I talked before about like the sleep, if they're just sleeping well and there's no issues, you don't necessarily have to write all of this stuff down every single day. If they're eating perfectly fine, you don't need to write all of that down. Definitely always write about contact, and definitely always write about any behaviour. A big thing that people always say to me is, like, what if nothing happens? What if, you know, it's repetitive? I get it, they are repetitive, but I find that having these headings really does help out, because it makes you think about, like, what happened today. Because say sometimes, like, you've had a day at home, you haven't done anything, you didn't go anywhere, literally nothing's happened, they've just played with some Duplo, or you've whatever it may be. Just write that in. Kids played with Duplo all day, building towers, whatever happened, write that in to the daily diary. I think people kind of overthink the daily diary too much and get a little bit stressed about it, just write down what happened. Like, it is going to get repetitive, life's repetitive, and that's where I've said it, I'll say it again, like that's where the headings really do help me, that they focus my attention on like what I need to write about, and don't worry that they are repetitive. It's like, you get the information down, it's like, send it over. It's other people that have got to read the repetitive stuff. It doesn't matter that it's repetitive. For me, I send these in weekly. I know I used to send them in monthly, but I found that if I sent them in monthly, I would just get lazy with them, and I didn't hold myself accountable to getting them in when I have got that smaller time frame. I know that some people that have to do them every day, which to be honest, I kind of quite like that you just got to get it done that day. But I do mine, I do them every single day, and then I send them in weekly to my social worker. And it definitely helps me stay more on track with them. So I would recommend, if you're doing them monthly, maybe it is working for you, but I would recommend doing it in a shorter space of time, like a week, every week you send them in. It just makes you more, because let's be honest, they're boring to do. They're probably, like, for me, like the crappiest part of fostering, and there can be some crap parts to it, but this, like, paperwork, people just hate the paperwork, and I get it. People then ask me, like, how do I do them on my phone? I've talked in videos how when I have got sort of a spare 20 minutes, say I've taken the children to contact, and like maybe I've gone for a walk or done some shopping, and I've got like 20 minutes or so until they finish, I always try to whip out my phone. To be honest, quite often I've got my my laptop with me, and so I will do it on my laptop just because I prefer doing the things on my laptop. But if I haven't and I've just got my phone with me, what you can do, so I work on Apple, I've got an iPhone, I've got a Mac, and so I use Pages, which is just like Word for iPhones, for Apple, if you don't know. And all I do is I just have them stored on the cloud, and so I can just bring them up. If I go to the Pages app on my phone, any document that I'm currently using is both on my computer and on my phone, and so I can just open it up on here and I can just type their daily diary. It's like, it's that simple. There are other ways you can do it if you don't have an iPhone, or if you don't want to use Pages. You could use this Office Suite, which is kind of like the Word version. You do have to buy it, I believe, but it is just the same thing, that you've just got like a word processor on your phone, and you could just do it on your phone and then send it off. I personally find it a really handy thing having it on my phone, just because like we all have those like spare 5-10 minutes when we're waiting for something throughout the day, and like, oh, let's get this down, and it just helps me to keep on top of the daily diary. So I'd recommend getting something on your phone. A section that I will sometimes add in for very young children and babies, or maybe someone who is slightly delayed developmentally, is I will add in like a development section. So if they sort of did something for the first time, maybe they're really practicing with using their knife and fork, maybe a baby's rolled over for the first time, maybe they've grabbed out a toy for the first time, all these different developmental milestones for the children, I will write those things in the daily diaries as well. So I have been asked, like, what would I include for very, very young babies, like newborn babies, and really I would just be including their sleep times, when they're sleeping, for how long, what bottles they're having as they get a little bit older, you know, the weaning process, what foods they're trying, when, the nappy changes, maybe that's a good one to keep track of, possibly, if you're so inclined. And I would do like an activities, what you did, because you will do things with a newborn baby, whether it's just sat on my knee for 20 minutes staring at me, you know, things happen with a newborn baby. Went for a walk, was very grizzly today, didn't settle for sleeps. Newborn baby diaries will absolutely be very repetitive. Maybe seeing parents, even as a very young baby, maybe seeing parents does affect them, either positively or negatively. Maybe it just throws them out of whack with any routine that you may have with them, and they're a little bit more grizzly for the rest of the day. Just get that recorded down. Maybe they don't sleep as well that night. So there we go, that is a look at daily diaries. If you've got any more questions, please do leave them down below in the comments and I will try my best to help you out. If you fancy taking a look at this book, if you think that may help you out with making notes or however you want to use it, I will link that down below in the description. I will also link down below a life storybook printable that you can print out and use with your children when you start creating their life storybook. Not necessarily daily diary related, but it's a really nice, I use it with all my children, and it's a really nice little printable that you can use to record the child's time with you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Quite a lot of you are not subscribed yet, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.